Thank you, Hazan. I wanted to share with all of you something I read in Haaretz, an Israeli newspaper, on Monday. The article says, "The camera is running. A teenage girl fixes her hair and looks straight into the lens. Behind her, you can see a modest and colorless living room. This is my life now. Strange, huh? I can't really believe it, but this is it," she says to the camera. "What is happening outside is becoming more and more dangerous, and I'm afraid of what might happen. For several weeks, she's not been allowed to go outside, not to mention going to school. I'm scared," she says a moment later, her eyes welling up with tears. The teenager's first video, about 5 minutes long, was posted on YouTube 2 weeks ago. Since then, every few days, a new video clip is added, featuring a girl who seems to be bright and sensitive, revealing how she is confronting a new reality of isolation and danger. Her comments expose deep fear, sadness, and loneliness, but at the same time, creativity, love, and dreams as well. These clips are, however, not just another series of selfie videos that have been posted in their millions in recent weeks on social media, in which the subject describes a daily routine that was suddenly interrupted and how they're dealing with it. This video diary is something special. And while I think everyone who is finding ways to document, appreciate, and celebrate the isolation they are feeling should be celebrated, this young woman is particularly impressive. Well, not technically the woman you see in the video. She's an actress. But the words that she's speaking are real. They were written in a diary long ago. You see, this video diary is the newest adaptation of Anne Frank's thoughts. The article notes that since the 1950s, when the young girl who hid from the Nazis in an attic became one of the best-known symbols of the Holocaust, her famous diary has been adapted in dozens of film versions, television series, a virtual reality experience, and recently in the form of a graphic novel in Hebrew that's due to be turned into an animated film. Now, for the first time, Anne Frank's story has morphed into an internet diary. And the management of the Anne Frank house in Amsterdam could not possibly have foreseen that their production would coincide with the outbreak of the coronavirus that has taken shape and shaken the entire world. They couldn't have known this when they began 3 years ago on this ambitious project. But the timing does coincide. And while the article continues with a great conversation about this new attempt to retell an old and important story, I bring it to your attention now because of the interesting ways so many are relating their modern experiences of quarantine with this unique and terrible moment from history. As we count our days in place, many begin to feel trapped. Is what we're going through like what Anne Frank experienced? L'chavdil, no. In so many ways that truly matter, it is not. And yet, in some small ways, our experiences of isolation bring new relevance to her story. And her strength can inspire us even more, as we're reminded that in the darkest moments of Jewish history, our ancestors found moments of hope and faith. While I do hesitate to compare the Holocaust to this pandemic, we may learn the lessons that if our ancestors could find the strength to resist, to sing about faith and hope, recognizing that every moment living is a sacred moment, a gift from God, during the biggest crisis of their lives, then all the more so can we. And for many of us, this isolation is just a new layer on top of a mountain of trouble and challenge that we face anyway. Earlier this week, I had back-to-back conversations with congregants on Zoom that were struggling with or who had previously struggled and survived through a series of traumas in their life. And as I look at them with awe for their inner strength, I'm inspired by the way some people are able to see and find and make beautiful moments, even in the hardest of times. And I wonder how we can do that now. How the lessons of the Holocaust and the social, spiritual, physical, and artistic acts of resistance of our ancestors can motivate us now during these difficult times to continue to thrive. It's difficult though. As day in and day out, some of us are home alone. Some of us are trying to figure out how to work while educating and caring for our children simultaneously. Some of us are trying to find motivation to get up off the couch and do something meaningful. And day after day after day goes by. Rabbi Kahn writes, when this pandemic began over a month ago now, I noticed that some of my friends started to count the days and weeks as they passed. We made it through week 1 of being home with our kids, someone posted. Or today is the 10th day, I'm home alone. Everyone was counting. I made a decision, she writes, at that time to not count. It became clear within a couple of weeks that this abnormal way of living would go on for quite some time, and it made me feel worse to count days or weeks when I had no clue how long I'd be counting for. We count things to feel accomplished. We might know exactly how many steps we took today or miles walked this week. We count things to feel in control of our lives, calories, points, daylight hours left when we just need to get through the day. We count things to attempt to fully comprehend a tragedy, like the over 2 million people who have contracted COVID-19 in our world, or the 6 million Jewish souls that were lost in the Holocaust. Elie Wiesel asked, how does one mourn 6 million people? How many candles does one light? How many prayers does one recite? Do we know how to remember the victims, their solitude, their helplessness? They left us without a trace, and we are their trace. What is it we do? We count them. We collect bottle tops and count them. We count and count because it helps us somehow understand the magnitude. Numbers and counting are deeply connected to our shared history, our daily lives and our Jewish lives, especially this time of year, not only because this past week we observed Yom HaShoah, remembering all those lost in the Holocaust, but also because, as I've mentioned before, we are now in the process of counting the Omer. Rabbi Mona Alfie writes that when we count the Omer, we're sanctifying time itself. We are not only counting the days and the weeks between our physical liberation from slavery in Egypt to standing at Sinai and receiving the Torah, but we are being taught to understand that our journey through the wilderness, from one place to the other, is in itself a sacred journey. The counting of the Omer is a tangible way to understand what Rabbi Alvin Fine was talking about when he wrote this beautiful prayer that says, birth is a beginning and death a destination, and life is a journey. From childhood to maturity and youth to age, from innocence to awareness and ignorance to knowing, from foolishness to discretion, and then perhaps to wisdom, from weakness to strength, or from strength to weakness, and often back again, from health to sickness, and we pray, back to health again, from offense to forgiveness, from loneliness to love, from joy to gratitude, from pain to compassion, from grief to understanding, from fear to faith, from defeat to defeat to defeat, until looking backward or ahead, we see that victory lies not at some high point along the way, but in having made the journey, stage by stage. A sacred pilgrimage, birth is a beginning and death a destination, and life is a journey. In Judaism, we're taught not just to celebrate or sanctify the high points along the way, but the journey itself. We're taught to not simply count our days, but to count our choices and experiences and moments of meaning that fill those days with life. So whether it's writing in a diary named Kitty, posting on Facebook, or making a video blog on YouTube, marking and celebrating these mundane, in-between moments is actually very special in Judaism. Right now, most days feel as though we're trudging through a wilderness. These are days that this journey feels like it is without end. And we do not know yet how we as individuals or as a society will be changed by what we're going through now. But we do have a choice. We can choose to not simply count our days, but rather to make our days count. In the Shoah, choice was limited, but people still made their time count by choosing to resist in a multitude of ways. As Chaim Guri, Ammonia, Avrahami write in Faces of the Uprising, to smuggle a loaf of bread was to resist. To teach in secret was to resist. To gather information and distribute an underground newsletter was to resist. To cry out warning and shatter illusions was to resist. To sing a song, write a poem, draw a picture, offer a prayer, all of these were choices to defy reality and make life meaningful. In our world, in our isolation, in our worry with our limitations. How do we resist losing ourselves, losing track of our time, losing connection with our friends and loved ones? We resist by ordering and enjoying Shabbat in a box and marking time in a special way. We resist when our preschool teachers visit our gone children outside their homes, standing 6 feet away at least, but cheering and singing for them or riding their bike around with them, making the whole family smile. We resist when our religious school has a virtual mitzvah day and engages in a multitude of acts of loving kindness, doing their part to bring love into our world. We resist COVID-19 by staying home, by doing what we can to not overwhelm hospitals and healthcare workers, to make sure we and others stay healthy and safe. We resist darkness by joining together in programs like the ones we've been offering for mental health, like Coping with Corona or Healthy Selves. We resist boredom by joining a class on cantillation or a Torah study and filling our minds with new information. We resist loneliness by joining our welcome reception and connecting with others. We resist indifference by staying informed about all those suffering around the world and finding ways to count our blessings. And we resist apathy by tuning in and joining our hearts together. To sing a song, write a poem, draw a picture, offer a prayer. All of these are still choices to defy reality and make life meaningful. We make our days count by choosing over and over again to act in meaningful and beautiful ways. And if we do this enough, eventually time will pass and we will come out on the other side. We count. And maybe someday, years from now, someone will find that our thoughts and choices were notable enough to turn them into a book, or a movie, or a video diary. Shabbat Shalom. We are on page 11, and I invite all who are able to rise for Aleinu.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה